Hey guys, so let's hope we can do this again without an interruption. Got a phone call, and of course, that's my mom. She likes to check in on things and all that, and so she called twice. That's why originally I started this I think about 15 minutes ago, and then I waited after the first talk. I waited basically about 10 minutes before doing it again, and then waiting another 10 before just to get this going, because I know how she is. But anyway, as I was trying to say in that first video, the original, I don't normally do this much, but let's talk about a little bit of wrestling, because a lot of wrestling news has been coming across the board as of late. And one of the big news items is, according to several reliable sources, one of the big news items is it was announced that starting in January, Smackdown on USA will go to 3 hours. Now, the catch, apparently, according to some reports, if you believe them, the catch is this will only go to at least June of next year. That would be about 6 months. The reason for this is the first 6 months of 2025 with SmackDown at 3 hours. It initially is going to be like a testing ground, like to see how fans are going to react and see how, I guess, the viewership numbers will either go up or down, depending on people wanting to tune in for 3 hours on a Friday night. And if it stays up at a certain number, I guess, then it's going to remain 3 hours going forward after the initial 6 months. But if it goes down and viewership goes down, mostly with that third hour, then obviously they're going to go back to 2 hours and remain that way. Either way, I do see them going back to 2 hours, at least in the summer, if they decide, hey, we're going to be 3 hours, the first 6 months of the year, and then maybe for the final, September, October, November, the final 4 months of the year, we're going to, we're initially going to go and do 3 hours. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen, that if they go do the 3 hours for SmackDown initially, starting at the beginning of next year, that, they may stop, and they may stop doing it for the summer at least, and then go back to it in the fall. So I could see, like I said, January, February, March, April, May, and maybe the beginnings of June, I could see them at least going for 3 hours. And I think as soon as summer comes around, like the first full week or second full week of June, I could see them going back to 2 hours. And then for that time frame from like June, July, August, and then maybe mid-September, I could see them going and going back to going to 2 hours, and then after that, midway through September, going back to 3 hours. I could see them doing something like that. I could see them doing at least like the first 6 months, like I said, or the first 5.5 months, which is, like I say, January, February, March, April, May, and then parts of June. So I could see like 6 months, and then I could see like July and August being the only 2 full months, and then a little bit of June thrown into. So I could see for like 2.5 months in the summer they will, or at least 3 months, because I could see like the second half of June and the first half of September being sort of the 2 hour run for them, and then from the second half of September to the end of the year, I could see them going to 3 hours and maybe maintaining that up until the following summer of 2026. But we'll have to see. To me, I wouldn't rule something like that out for WWE to attempt, because again, someone has to realize in TKO and in WWE that the summer, everybody's out and about, with their families on vacations, and not everybody's going to want to spend a Friday evening 3 hours watching WWE programming when they could be, DVRing it and just partying and all that instead. Now, the other catch as well is apparently it might, the following day, which would be a Saturday, the replay for SmackDown might show up on Netflix. And if that does happen, then that could be interesting, because Peacock has this deal as of right now. I don't know if it's up real soon, but they have this deal to where every episode of SmackDown comes out a month later. So like tonight's SmackDown, which is the September 27th version, wouldn't come out until October 27th. So that's the exclusive, that's kind of the, I wouldn't say exclusivity, but that's kind of the deal they have in place with Peacock. But if this new deal with Netflix is to be believed, then again, I don't know how that would work out. I'm assuming Peacock will still have the, Peacock will still have the rights to air the replay a month later. But part of this new deal with Netflix would allow the replay for SmackDown to show up the next day. So we'll have to see what happens. But to me, I think the most logical situation that might occur if they are focused, if they, and this being USA, is serious about having SmackDown, be 3 hours to replace the 3-hour Raw they're giving up, then I could see maybe some kind of deal working out to where if the viewership numbers and stuff are not up to where they should be, and everything, as well as the DVR numbers, if they're not up where they should be, especially with that 3rd hour, I could see a deal being made, between both USA and TKO to where if nothing is, substantial out of this, then come the summer, they go right back to 2 hours and stay there. Or I could see a deal being made to where during the summer they go to 2 hours, a certain time frame in the summer, like I mentioned, like, the second half of June into the first half of September, that, at least for that time frame, they'll go back to 2 hours because, people would be on vacation, out and about, partying and stuff like that. But then come like the second half of September and going forward for the rest of the year and maybe up until the summer of 2026, they'll go back to 3 hours. That could be something they work out. Like once every year, during the summer, they'll annually go back to 2 hours. But we'll see. I'm assuming, not the latter, but the first option is probably what's going to be, if not is the deal, I should say, that they've made to where SmackDown's going to go for 3 hours, and if it succeeds, they're going to keep it that way, and if it doesn't, they're going to go back to 2 hours and just, leave it at that. And I know some people, strangely, I mean, I've listened to what JD from Off the Script and others have said, Salamonster and Just Alex, everybody that covers wrestling. Everybody has, talked about people being very complacent about it. Like, oh, you're not going to have enough time for said talent and everything. And, a lot of them have to point out that, this is not Vince McMahon that's running things anymore. This is Triple H. And Triple H knows how to manage talent. He knows how to basically say, hey, we're not going to have you on this week, but we'll have you on the next week. And, we're going to basically continue whatever programming storyline that you're part of. We're just going to kind of rotate here and there to fit everybody in as, best we can. So I think I do agree, I should say, that people need to realize that this is not Vince McMahon's WWE anymore. This is the TKO, Triple H WWE, and they're more properly managed of how to, showcase people when needed, especially within a 2 hour time frame. And then speaking of 2 hours, of course, Raw has been announced that they will go back to 2 hours at least for the remainder of their time on USA because they got that extension. So instead of being 3 hours, they're going to go to 2 hours. And again, this is going to be a test to see, how the management is going to be implementing certain talents on certain weeks to further storylines and programs and character developments and so on. And the other reason I think, they're going back to 2 hours is because that's part of the extension agreement. Like USA realizes, well, we're not going to have Raw after the beginning of next year or at the end of this year. We're not going to have it anymore. Because the last Raw of this year, the last Monday in December, will be the last Raw on USA. So they're realizing, well, why should we put and pump, extra money into something we're not going to have access to, after next year. So they're basically saying, hey, we'll let you stay on, but we'll have you, we'll allow you to go, but you're going to have to go back to 2 hours. Well, that was the mutual agreement. Like, hey, we'll keep you on, forever long for the rest of the year. And just, go from there. I'm sure they wanted it to go 3 hours, but I'm thinking Triple H, Nick Khan said, yeah, but if you're not going to have us after next year, why keep us 3 hours? Let's save you a little bit of money, and we'll go back to 2 hours. And I think the reason they're also doing it is a bit of an experiment because there is speculation that Raw would go back, would be 2 hours, maybe 2 hours plus on Netflix. But there's also reports that it could be 3 hours. I think when you look in between the lines there, when they move to Netflix, I think the common ground is it's not going to be 3 hours. You're looking at mainly 2.5 to maybe 3 hours, depending on the circumstances going forward. So I think that's what you're going to look at. You're looking at 2.5 to 3 hours more so than anything. And the 2 hours are just like a testing ground to see how people will implement, to that side of, production and everything going forward, especially with the fact that they have a 2-hour special coming up in December, and that special is Saturday night's main event. So to me, when it comes to Raw and it going back to 2 hours, I think it's a test to get people ready for the possibility that, hey, times, may vary during the run on Netflix. So you might be doing 2.5, you might be doing 3, you might be just doing 2. We'll have to see. And then also the fact that they got the NBC special coming up. So I think that's why it's going back to 2 hours as well, as part of the extension agreement of, hey, USA basically get what you can out of this as much as you can, and financially and sponsorship wise, but also let us kind of save a little bit of money on both ends going forward into the future with Netflix and such, and also immaculate our production people to try to adjust to what the different time frames may be with the show when it hits Netflix, because even if they go back. Because that when Raw goes to 2 hours, they're going to have a bit of an overrun. They will have a bit of an overrun, especially going into certain pay-per-views or certain, special episodes and stuff. They will be going into an overrun once in a while. So I think it's being done to immaculate the production company to the potential changes of, okay, 2.5, 3 hours, 2, whatever, when they go to Netflix. But yeah, Raw is going to 2 hours. And everybody's looking forward to that. As far as the jump to Netflix, again, it's all depending, what, the situation's going to call for each week. But I'm thinking it's mainly going to be between 2.5 to 3 hours at most, depending on the circumstances and the storylines and everything that have to be talked about or focused on. So that's what's going on there. And then, of course, like I mentioned, WWE is bringing back Saturday night's main event. They promoted this with using the old Obsession song. Don't know if they'll use that going forward when the Saturday night's main event happens. But contrary to the belief, they will not be doing Saturday night's main event on the same day as World's End, which is an AEW event. Instead, they will be doing it 2 weeks before on the 14th on NBC. It will be emanating from the original birthplace of Saturday night's main event, the Nassau Coliseum, which, by the way, hosted AEW World's End last year and has hosted several AEW events. But I can guarantee you, AEW World's End, they had a decent crowd, not a sellout, at the Nassau Coliseum. Saturday night's main event, a special primetime broadcast network show, that's going to have a sellout. That, I guarantee you, is going to stick in the craw of Tony Khan, knowing that a quarterly event that people are going to watch more than his Battle of the Belts quarterly events, is going to be a sellout, and it's going to basically topple attendance-wise World's End, and he's not going to like that. So that's basically what's happening there. And a lot of people are speculating, a lot of fans are speculating exactly what we're going to get there. Some fans are speculating that, this, upcoming week at Bad Blood, not this week, but next week, the go-home week, everybody's speculating that at Bad Blood, certain championships will be retained but then changed hands on Saturday night's main event. That might be the case. We don't know. Some are assuming John Cena is going to be there to compete. We'll see. But it's going to be interesting as to how they build to that Saturday night's main event, because because this interesting scenario is after Survivor Series, there's no pay-per-views. There's no pay-per-views to the 1st of February with the Royal Rumble. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do, and I'm assuming they're going to be packing, that, Saturday night's main event, the first one in almost a decade. Oh, I wouldn't say decade, but the first one in about 16 years, I think. 16 years, a little over a decade and a half, almost 20 years. I think that's what it is. So a decade and a half. So they're going to be loading that up. They're going to be loading that up with a lot of talent and a lot of big matches, and I think that's going to basically be the tipping point as to what the first Raw on Netflix is going to look like as well. And I can tell you this too: if Tony Khan doesn't like the fact that WWE outdoes a lot of his things, he's not going to like what happens this Tuesday when they go head-to-head with NXT. Because I've got a feeling, Title Tuesday or not, they're going to get destroyed. They are going to get destroyed on Title Tuesday. And I think that's supposed to be the 5th anniversary. Oh, no, that's not this Tuesday, but that's the following Tuesday. That's the St. Louis show that NXT will have. But anyway, either way, he's not going to be happy with NXT beating him in the ratings and the viewership numbers for both weeks, especially with what's being advertised for the debut on CW and for what's being advertised the following week in St. Louis. So I know he's not going to be happy about that whatsoever. But yeah, to me, going back to the Saturday night's main event, to me that's going to be like the tipping point, the start off point to what we may see come the first Raw on Netflix in 2025, in January 6th, that is. Speaking of AEW and Tony Khan, word got out this morning. A lot of people were trying to always give Tony Khan the benefit of the doubt. People like JD from NY206 off the script, and Solid Monster and Alex Hicks and Good Mic Work and everybody, even Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, have all been trying to give Tony Khan the benefit of the doubt that he would never do this because he's, somebody that's like, hey, if you don't want to be here, if you feel unsatisfied, no problem, I'll let you go. Well, apparently that's not the case here because he has gone, because it has been reported that he has tacked on time due to injuries to both Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr., Penta El Zero Mero. He has basically tacked on time to the Lucha Brothers, and Penta's contract was supposed to be up last month, if not this month, and the same with Rey Fenix, this month or next month, basically within the same time frame. And both have basically made it clear that they don't want to be in AEW anymore. They're dissatisfied. They're not being utilized. There's been opportunities for Tony Khan to utilize them, but he hasn't done it. So instead of basically being the fan that he says he is, and the person that is willing to give the wrestlers what they want, like wanting out of the contracts even before expiration or whatever, instead he decides to be a hypocrite in the eyes of a lot of folks and tack on some extra time. Now some people have come out and justified and said, well, that's in the right, for them to do that because, hey, you're paying them a lot of money, so why should you let them go, especially if they haven't been on your television, in a while, and you're paying them a lot of money and they've been injured, and that's one of the reasons they've been off television. Why would you do that? Why don't you just add time on in and use them as much as you can before you have to really officially let them go? There are people that are justifying what he's doing, but also people coming out and saying that he's becoming exactly what he swore he'd never become, and that is being a Vince McMahon. He's becoming a Vince McMahon in the terms of how he's doing these things and stuff. And it is, I will admit it's kind of sad to see Tony doing this. It is kind of sad seeing him doing this, but he's the boss. He's the guy that writes the checks, and if he feels like, hey, I got to keep these people under contract for the next several months, if you will, or the next year, possibly, due to injury and due to the fact that I'm paying them and they're not here, unfortunately he isn't that right, but it does make him seem like a hypocrite. But I think what's going on, in my honest opinion, I think what's going on is he's realizing, like a lot of us have, that Triple H has been booking a lot of talent, not just, homegrown WWE talent or talent that comes from the indies to WWE and such, but even his own former talent. He's noticing that Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Nick Khan, they are booking them a lot better than he ever has. For example, you look at All Ego Ethan Page, first match in with the company, he's the NXT champion. And they've been booking him like a legit superstar, like the superstar everybody knew he could be, and he has proven on occasions to be. So he sees that. He sees how Cody Rhodes has been booked. He sees how others have been booked that worked for him. I think, who else? Alexis King, the former Brian Pillman Jr., Sean Spears. He's seeing how better they've been booked and everything, even through NXT and the main roster, and even CM Punk, believe it or not. And it's getting to him. He doesn't like it. He hates seeing that. So he's like, he's like, I'm not about to let him, take my Lucha Brothers, because, that's how people perceive Tony looks at certain talent, like, oh, these are mine, you can't have them, mine. He's looking at them, and he's looking at that and realizing, well, if I let them go, and they sign immediately with WWE, Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Nick Khan, they're going to book them a lot better than I ever could. And he's like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let him have them so easily, just like that. I'm going to tack on some time. I'm going to give them a taste of their own medicine. And even some people that are defensive about that, are not defensive, but some people that have come to the defense of Tony Khan about that, some of them that are known as AEW drones or AEW hard-ons or whatever you want to call them, they're basically, laughing about this. They're getting a kick out of it, saying, ha ha, you gotta wait a lot longer, you WWE drones, ha 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 ha. They're doing that, and they're not realizing that it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before the Lucha Brothers do come in. But yeah, Tony Khan is keeping them under a contract with with extension because of their injuries. And again, unfortunately, he does have the right to do that, but it doesn't make him look good in the long run, period. It basically makes him look like a hypocrite and makes it look like he's turning into the very person he fought against, and basically turning AEW into a copycat of WWE, but with a bit of a WCW, ECW flair thrown in. And what's interesting is when you look at what's going on at the 5th anniversary show. I talked about this. Everybody else has talked about this. Him basically booking Will Ospreay against Ricochet. Ricochet's only been doing a few matches here and there. And now he's got a title match. You don't want to wait on it. And it's understandable that people feel that way, and I agree with them. But this is just Tony Khan again, and I mentioned this in a super chat, and I talked about it in a video as well, to JD and Jesse doing the Dynamite review the other week. And even they agreed, when you read between the lines of Jesse's response and JD's response to my super chat, they even agree when you read between the lines that, obviously they would not put it past Tony Khan to book the match for that very reason. Because it's the go home week to Bad Blood. NXT's on CW the night before. They obviously, again, when you read between the lines of that, don't put it past Tony Khan to do that. To them, they'd rather have it, built up to, take place at a more proper event. And that's why I've come out, and I'm sure anybody else would agree with this, that why not just do an angle this upcoming Wednesday, and go and play it by ear afterwards. But we'll have to see. But again, this shows how much Triple H and WWE is getting to Tony Khan. Because it's not Vince McMahon he's fighting against anymore. It's not Vince McMahon he's booking against anymore. Basically WWE has become what AEW was, and AEW, as I said, in the eyes of a lot of folks, even the diehard AEW fans, has become what WWE once was under Vince. So the roles have basically reversed, and not a lot of people like that. And when you look at what he's doing with the situation with the Lucha Brothers, and then the Ricochet Ospreay match, and then the fact, attendance-wise, they haven't been able to sell out or get a decent crowd in these big venues. And the reasoning for it, apparently, according to a question that a fan asked Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful, the reason they book these venues is for the amenities. Yeah, the amenities. The places for catering, the places for selling merchandise or whatever, the concessions. It's like, fine, but you do realize there are smaller venues to where you could seat a lot of people, and they have just as good, if not better, amenities and concessions than the venues you book at right now. And people look at that and they're like, this is embarrassing. I mean, there is an image from Dynamite, about a week or two ago, that's floating about, that somebody took a picture of on one side of the arena, well, everybody was seated. And on the other side, the hard cam side, you have like 1 or 2, 3 fans. And then people are pointing out that basically they had, 7,000, 8,000 plus, for Grand Slam this past week at Arthur Ashe Stadium, which, by the way, they were able to fill up not that long ago, like 2-3 years ago. Even last year, they were able to get it decently halfway there. But it's like, this is pathetic. I mean, yeah, it came off camera as looking big, but you notice the tarp, or the dark areas, or certain areas of it, was darkened out. Because they didn't get the sellout they wanted. And then, on top of that, people also bring up the fact that Tony Khan is so desperate to outdo Triple H and WWE that he booked Danielson versus McGuinness, which was a good matchup, don't get me wrong, but booked them for basically the opportunity to try to get more people in the seats. And yeah, granted, it did do that, but not as much as I'm sure Tony was hoping for. And this is why people feel Tony is becoming what he was against. Everything I've mentioned, he's becoming what he was against. And it makes people wonder too, when Bryan Danielson finally steps away after losing the World Championship, possibly in his home state of Washington, in Tacoma, at the Tacoma, I think it's the Tacoma Dome they're at, right? For Wrestle Dream. This is why people are speculating whether or not Danielson might just say, you know what, if I'm going to make a return to the ring, but on a part-time basis, I'm going to go back to WWE. People wouldn't put it past him to do it. They wouldn't put it past him to do it. Even though it feels like he'll stay with the AEW, people fan-wise and even on the inside, people that, are part of the wrestling business or have contacts, people would not put it past him to go back to WWE to finish out, the remainder of his career, especially with the schedule they have now and putting family first when it comes to their talent. They wouldn't put it past him. They wouldn't. And perfect timing for that to happen would be the Royal Rumble in February. Who knows? And now, and here's the thing. People will say, well, look at all the talent that is coming in. The MVPs, the possible Bobby Lashley's, and the Shelton Benjamins. And yeah, that's great and everything. But we don't know what the contract status is. We don't know if it's a behind the scenes and part-time on-screen status. We don't know. We don't know. But the thing is, when it comes to AEW, for every good thing they're doing, for every 1 or 2 steps they're taking forward, they're taking like 3 or 4, 5, 6 steps back. And Tony needs to start taking those 3 or 4, 5, 6 steps back. He needs to make that, he needs to reverse it, is what I'm trying to say. He needs to go from taking this 2 or 3 steps forward and the 4 to 5 to 6 steps back. He needs to reverse that and be, and end up going the 4 to 5, 6 steps forward and the 2 to 3 steps back. That's what he needs to do. I mean, yeah, everybody agrees. You're going to get a sweet deal out of your situation with the WBD. You're going to get put on the True TV twice a week with replays of maybe Collision and Dynamite and maybe your Shockwave show. Yeah, you might end up on FS1 with Shockwave, if not True TV, and that's great and everything. But it's not going to matter if you don't, stop basically making. Sorry about that. The battery died and everything. But like I was saying, basically, he needs to stop making, making his attempt to take Triple H and all of them down, or proving he's better than them. He needs to stop making that a priority because it's not helping him in the long run. It's not. It's not helping him in the long run to do that. Because the more you do it, the worse you're going to make things. Again, like I said, yeah, he's got this sweet deal coming up with, the WBD and potentially FS1, Fox that is, by extension, for his programming. But, what good is that going to be if you don't reverse the roles of taking 4 or 5 steps back and 2 or 3 steps forward and reverse that to where it's basically, 4 or 5, 6 steps forward and 2 or 3 steps back. What good is that? What good is that? What good is that if you don't, like I said, reverse that and try to net more positive, not just profit-wise, but fan-wise and viewership-wise and all that, what good is that if your main focus at the end of the day is to prove, I'm better than Triple H. I'm better than Triple H. You know what it does? It makes people like Phil Brooks, CM Punk, be, correct in what they assume about you or what they said about you. That's what it makes. That's what makes things, a reality when people like them are proven right about you because you pull stuff like this. And that doesn't help in the long run. It doesn't. It doesn't. So he needs to focus more on, what's going on with the company and try to reverse, like I said, those steps, if you will, from, 4 or 5, 6 steps back, 2 or 3 steps forward to 4 or 5, 6 steps forward and 2 or 3 steps back, and that's it. He needs to do that and not anything else. So if I'm him, and again, AEW has all the potential to be, probably the best, not just in-ring product, but best product overall when it comes to pro wrestling. They have the potential to do that. They just need to focus more on the company themselves and the talent there and how to make things better instead of trying to prove yourself being the better promoter and the better company than WWE, which, by the way, let's be honest, is light years away, is light years above AEW right now, and Tony Khan needs to realize that. And Tony Khan also needs to realize this, and I'll even send this to Eric Bischoff and time it. He is no Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, for all his faults, knew what he was doing. He knew how to capitalize on what WWE wasn't doing and use that to his advantage. He knew what to do. He knew what to lock into and focus on it. And for 83 plus weeks, and even before that, is the reason why fans tuned into Nitro over Raw. So Tony Khan needs to wake up and realize he ain't no Eazy-E, period. And he ain't no Vince Russo either. So the long end of it is this. At the end of the day, and everybody has said this, even Bischoff, even Russo, Cornette, everybody has said, even those at Busted Open Radio have said this. His product has all the potential to be the best overall product in the business, period. But it's never going to get there if he keeps focusing on trying to be better than Triple H and WWE, because it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen, period. So yeah, that's AEW in a nutshell right now with what's going on there. Everything I've mentioned is definitely not making him look good. It's not making his company look good. I mean, talent could say they have all the freedom they want to be themselves again. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you that talent, either they're from WWE or not, they're probably asking themselves, what the hell did I get myself into? And I bet you some of them, if not through their families or, significant others, are probably considering trying to legally get out of the contracts. I guarantee you Ricochet is probably thinking about that right now, even though he won't admit it. And that's really about it. Oh, just one more thing. It's really silly. I don't think it's going to have any significance, period. But apparently, according to reports, there's a situation going on between WWE, if not mostly TKO, and Anthem Sports, and TNA, but mostly Anthem Sports and TKO, when it comes to Santino Marella's name. Apparently, there's some kind of copyright rights, situation. But I think Santino has the rights to the name, so he's able to use it wherever they want. But I think TKO hasn't gotten the message yet or the memo. So yeah, that's something that's going on there. A lot of people are wondering, is it going to sour the relationship between both companies? I don't think so. I don't think it will, because if it did, TNA wouldn't be still showing a lot of the taped shows that feature NXT talent showing up on there. Either going up against Jordynne Grace or teaming with Jordynne Grace, like they had one of the more popular NXT women teaming up with her this past Thursday or on yesterday's episode. That being Sol Ruca, who I think is going to be a big star when she hits the main roster, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what's going on with TNA, and really not much after that. Other news, it sounds like Matt Riddle probably is going to head back to WWE, try to work something out to go back there. Hopefully he can work something with that, work out something to where he can come back, but maybe he gets the same kind of stipulation added to his contract, which is a behavioral stipulation. But we'll see. And if it happens, again, we might see him in the Royal Rumble next year, maybe even with the likes of a Bryan Danielson, who, again, I guarantee I'm not just the only one, but there are fans and there are people out there that might hear, oh, he's going to stay with AEW no matter what. There's a lot of people that hear that and they're like, yeah, that might happen, but we wouldn't put it past him, strongly wouldn't put it past him to maybe want to end his career with WWE, especially with the positive directive that they're heading in right now. But that's all I can really say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on all this. Comment down below. Like the video. Ring the bell for notifications. Subscribe to the channel. Also, check out my Teespring store. Link is in the description at the bottom. Also, check out where you can find my content elsewhere from Rumble.com at bwrosas, VENMO.com at bwrosas, Odyssey.com at bwrosas. Also, check me out at Venmo. There. I got a Cash App as well. Also, check me out at divanart.com at BVW1979. Also, check me out at all your favorite audio and at times video podcast affiliates like iHeartRadio, iTunes, Audible, Pandora, Spotify for podcasters, Spotify, Radio Public, and many more. But guys, give me your thoughts on what I had to say here. Again, I do apologize for the camera abruptly, shutting off. Battery was going low. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. And until then, ladies and gentlemen, I will talk to you all later.